For more than 30 years, Robert Edward Auctions has been the nation's premier auction house, specializing in sports memorabilia and trading cards. With significant experience and expertise in all major sport, non-sport, and Americana collectibles, REA has helped clients achieve record-breaking prices for their items and has done so with a reputation for integrity and transparency. By actively partnering with collectors and enthusiasts throughout the entire process, REA has created the hobby's most trusted forum for selling high-quality collectibles. Go to robertedwardauctions.com for more information on how to buy or sell in their next auction.
All right, welcome to episode 12 of Cardmensches. I did not play the intro. This is what happens when Danny lets me play with the controls. So
it's so much fun. I'm loving every minute of this. How are you? How are you doing, my friend?
Good. I guess we'll use the REA commercial as the intro. Episode 12. We're off to the worst start out of the 12 today, but it's going to get better. I promise. I'll start by saying I'm Danny Black. That's John Newman to the right.
Oh, for the record, we got the lucky glass Coca-Cola, nothing else in the bottle.
So, all right, Danny. Well, you came up with this topic for this week, and it's, when we talk about prospecting, we think of rookies or guys before they've really made their impact, in the majors. And I like to do that. I did a little bit more of that before Bowman became like where you had to mortgage your house to get a half a case or a case of it. But, you asked me the question, can we prospect veterans? Can we prospect guys that aren't in the Hall but are slated to get in, or guys that are in the Hall of Fame? And I guess it depends on your definition of prospecting. The definition, the prospect kind of comes from someone who's not really did it yet. But prospecting, when you think about in the gold rush times, right, you're trying to acquire something. And so I'm going to use that definition and say, yeah, you can prospect, someone about to be in the Hall of Fame or somebody that's already is. And so I'll let you take it from there. That's just kind of how I interpret it.
I was about to say, you're giving away some of your good tips already. I think the reason I like this topic is with Bowman coming out recently, and like you said, the prices that are so high to get into, for some of these, cards, you're paying, $50, $100 for somebody who with no professional at bats. So the question is are there other ways to prospect? And to your definition, are there other ways to look for guys who might, there might be a little bit of a niche or something else to go after? And you and I, had a conversation, and we realized, let's just go ahead and, actually make this a show. So where can we look for players? Where are there spots in the market that we can find that are other than, college prospects or minor league prospects or international signings, for baseball or, like the college, we just had the NFL draft, and, we're going to have all those. So there's a lot of prospecting for the young guys, but what we're talking about is not those guys. So how do we prospect for veterans? Do you want me to go first? You want to go first here?
Well, I'll go first because there's an example I'll use that I even kind of enlightened you on, if I may be so bold, right? So Ichiro Suzuki's, obviously no one will debate whether he's going in the Hall. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And if you look at who's going up against him, he's definitely going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He might be the only one that gets in that year. That's how bad the class, who's eligible the year he's eligible. So I bet this house I'm sitting in, he's a first ballot, but probably unanimous Hall of Famer. And so this is where I'll answer yes, because I'm going to show a card on the screen here. I've talked about this on my show, and for some may recognize it, some may not. You try to get the glare. There you go. Now, some might say, oh, it's the Upper Deck Ovation Ichiro rookie. and you're sort of right, except his American Upper Deck Ovation was 2001. This is a 2000, and Upper Deck just in 2000 made a Japanese edition. So this is Ichiro in his Oryx Blue Wave uniform. This card is all in Japanese. If you look at the back, there is no English on it. This product was made just for Japan, and it was shipped to Japan. So anything we have here in the States came back over from Japan. Upper Deck did not release it here, as you know, Danny. This was made for the country of Japan only. Very limited amount of boxes. The cards are not individually numbered, but there's only 2,000 of these. Upper Deck has confirmed their print run is 2,000 of every card in the set, including obviously is the card you would want if you were opening packs. And so when I found out about the card,
just for comparison, Wander Franco's base card had 500,000 in the tops last year. So I just want to give a comparison to 2,000 is super, super short print.
Yeah, it really is. And look, it's an American. I know what we don't have Victor here to fact check us, or at least he's got his definition of rookie cards, right? So this would generally be called an XRC. I'm not going to keep putting up on the screen there. An XRC, right? It's not in his Seattle Mariners uniform. It's before he got to the big leagues. But the way I look at it, it's an American brand, right? This isn't BBM Japanese. This is Upper Deck. It's Ovation, what you come to expect from Ovation. The seams are raised. It's got the foil behind them. I love the aesthetics of the card too. But when I think about it, that it's on an Upper Deck card. It's his first appearance, as far as I'm concerned, on an American brand of baseball card. And when I found that out, and then when I initially saw what they were going for, I started to buy these things up. They go for a little more now, as you very well know, and I know, because it's getting harder to acquire them.
I think it's just you and I bidding against each other.
It could be. So I think there's, that sort of prospecting for a veteran shoe-in Hall of Famer. So I guess to me that answers the question, with yes.
So the question is, if we're talking about Ichiro, who else? If we're prospecting Hall of Famers, and I didn't come with this right now, but for me, Albert Pujols, Miguel Cabrera, Ichiro certainly. The question is Yadier Molina going to get in? Probably. Is he worth buying? There's the old.
Let's say, listen. Let's go in the Wayback Machine, right? Let's get Dr. Everett Brown and go in the DeLorean, right? Ted Simmons recently elected to the Hall of Fame, right? If you were buying Ted Simmons stuff before that announcement came, you did very well, right? Because obviously anybody who gets elected to the greatest honor in their particular sport, their cards are going to see an uptick, some more than others. Some people said, all right, Ted Simmons got in. I still don't want to buy any of his cards. But if you did buy some of his cards and you made out, and I guess you could say if you prospected Ted Simmons before the Hall of Fame election and announcement, that investment, if you want to use that word that's bad to some, that paid off for you. So there's a really old school way to prospect a Hall of Famer.
And to prove that we're not making this up, he was the most graded Hall of Famer in the 2 years after he was elected. And the reason is he had very few graded cards out there, but there was a demand then all of a sudden for his graded cards. So to your point, John, and to show that, that's really a form of prospecting. And then, this is a great question. What about guys who are only not in the Hall because of the steroid era? Would that be prospecting, perhaps?
I'm not going to lie. Great point by Dr. Steven here. I didn't even think about that, right? There are people who believe that Mark McGwire Barry Bonds is probably the better of the example, that believe someday the Veterans Committee is just going to say, listen, these guys, listen, a lot of people were doing it. These guys, were Hall of Famers even without steroids. You could definitely make that case more than anything for Barry Bonds, right? Before he went from a 6.5 size hat to a 7 7/8, right? When he was wearing a 6.5 hat, he already had a Hall of Fame career. So while I don't like steroid users and the players that did it, I can't sit here and tell you that Barry Bonds didn't put up the numbers before that. Same thing, Roger Clemens on the mound side, right? He had a Hall of Fame stat line probably before he started using. So if you're of the ilk that believes Clemens, Bonds, McGuire, that list of guys, Sosa probably on the outside looking in. They are on the outside looking in right now. But if you believe that at some day, right, they're going to get in somehow, some way, maybe even when they pass away, that's when they'll put them in so they don't get to enjoy that honor, as harsh as that may sound. So you could, but listen, their stuff's going reasonably priced for not being in the hall. If you think they're going to get in and you buy a bunch of, 87 Fleer Update Bonds or 85 Tops McGuires, they're obviously, if they ever do get in, those cards are going to see an increase in value.
And then there's sneaky players. Adrian Beltre, very, very good chance he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. His cards are pretty low priced compared to some of these other guys. If you're, he played for a lot of teams, so I don't know that he has one hometown. He played a lot of years in Texas at the end, but he came up as a 12-year-old with the Dodgers. And hit 30 homers. So, I mean, he had a huge career, but I don't know that he gets the hobby love right now. And I think when he finally does get to the Hall, there would be a big bounce on a player like Beltre.
Yeah, he's a Hall of Famer. Look at the numbers. And that's a great point with him, right? That's a good word for it, right? Sneaky. He's just not a guy that, is in everybody's vernacular, right? But when you look at the numbers, he's getting in. And so a lot of people who weren't buying him, once he gets in, they're gonna, go back and try to buy his card. Here's the golden rule with Hall of Fame, right? I don't care who it is, Ted Simmons included. Once that announcement comes down, people are seeking out their cards. Some more than others. I get that, right? Where did everyone knock down doors to get a Ted Simmons rookie? No, but more Ted Simmons rookies were sold after the Hall of Fame announcement, most likely than prior to. Not all the time, but the time span between the two. That's just the nature of the beast. So Beltre, you got to look at guys like that that maybe people have forgotten about, but are going to get in. Another guy. How about this one? I just thought about this.
Okay.
His cards aren't super cheap, especially his rookie, but Pete Rose, right? No one can argue that he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
He's a Hall of Famer when it comes to stats, but he bet on the game. That's against the rules, and he was banned. What I think is going to happen with Pete Rose, he's the all-time. I think it's sort of already agreed upon, at least insiders in baseball or the commissioner. The way they're going to punish Pete is they're going to wait till he passes away, and then they're going to elect him into the Hall so he doesn't get to. And you could say, man, that's pretty harsh, but I think that's what happened. So if you have a lot of Pete Rose cards and are buying Pete Rose cards now, they're going to see an uptick if and when that day actually does occur.
Well, don't you think his rookie card is a little higher in price because people feel that to a certain degree?
I think his rookie cards are already high priced because of the body of work, right? No one, even people who don't like Pete Rose, even the most staunchest Pete Rose haters, which I'm not really one, will say Pete Rose is a Hall of Fame baseball player. Guy got 200 hits almost every year. He's the all-time hit king. No one hustled harder than him, and maybe not the nicest guy in the world,
You
but
should have seen me run after this earlier. I promise you, I outran Charlie Hustle.
So, he never got benched for not running hard on a ground ball that he hit, right? I think people just recognize greatness, whether he gets in the Hall of Fame or not. So I think that's where the rookie card loves comes from. But if he gets in, Danny, even as expensive as a 1963 Topps Pete Rose rookie is already, it's going to go up even further, especially high grade stuff and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think this is making sort of the point that you could. To me, prospecting is like putting money into some cards with the hope that they pan out. Either the player itself starts tearing it up, or in this case, where we're talking about retired players, that they get an accolade that they probably deserve, but maybe whether it's steroids or betting on baseball, that's what's keeping them from getting that accolade.
Great comment here from Mookie. Can you speculate on current Hall of Famers? I wonder if they get a bump when documentaries drop. Nolan, Reggie, Willie all had recent docs. I wonder if they saw a slight bump. Yogi doc, actually in the movie theaters. Was it yesterday or today for his birthday? It had a limited release for the Yogi Berra movie. So yes, absolutely. We saw that in the hobby world with The Last Dance with the Chicago Bulls. I mean, players other than Michael Jordan saw a bump on that. It all depends. I mean, Derek Jeter got a little bit of a bump when the captain came out, but some of these guys, it's too new, I think, or the stories are too niche. I don't, I think it's got to be something grand and something widely circulated. If it's a limited release that not a lot of people get into, or it's already the fans that already like the player, I don't think you're going to see the same bump. I think something like The Last Dance, during the pandemic, everybody watched it. It got everybody pumped up. I don't know, other than maybe, I'd be curious on the numbers of how many people were not familiar with Nolan Ryan who watched the Nolan Ryan documentary that learned, that went and invested in his cards.
Yeah. And even talking what Mookie has, I agree with him. You can speculate with current players, right? If you think Mookie Betts is on a Hall of Fame track, right? I'll use one of my favorite dudes. I'm going to it's not a secret. He's an all-star player. Not having a great start this year, but I love Trey Turner. Trey Turner's a guy under the radar. He doesn't elicit the same response. You say Trey Turner, you say Mike Trout, you say Trey Turner, Mookie Betts even, you're not going to get the same sort of effect, right? But when, barring injury, the famous two words, right? When Trey Turner's career is over, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. If everything tracks the way it is.
Well, just for his sliding alone.
Yeah. But there's a guy he plays great defense, right? Trey Turner's a guy, and listen, I'm already got a half a shoebox full of rookies, okay, of Trey Turner. I have autographed RPA stuff of Trey Turner, so I guess you could say I'm prospecting Trey Turner, even after the fact that he's even established himself now as a bona fide all-star in Major Leaguer, because his cards, to me, are undervalued. So I think that's another of the bylines here is you can buy cards that you feel are undervalued now, that at some point that's not going to be the case anymore. It's going to be an uptick, right? It's the reverse of Mike Trout. There's many that say, Mike Trout's already got, his stuff goes for what it goes for, it's not going to get a big jump. He's getting the Hall of Fame effect during his playing career. So I look for guys. Mookie Betts is probably a good example. Trey Turner, for me personally, guys that I think will be Hall of Famers, but people aren't really looking at them right now.
How about Mookie Wilson? I want to know how far we're going to prospect. Okay, so yeah.
I like Mookie Wilson as a Mets guy. Don't get me wrong, but Mookie Betts is a better quality player, right?
Yeah, fair enough. So I wanted to go through some of, and you've touched on some of them already, but I have three kind of categories that I look at when I'm prospecting veterans. And this is not something that I've started doing, but something that kind of for a while, post-hype prospecting. What is that? Well, a lot of rookies and a lot of guys come up with a lot of hype. Luis Robert with the White Sox. He was a top prospect in 2018, 2019, 2020. He finally makes his major league debut. Tons of hype. Well, here we are in 2023, and this could be a breakout year for him. But his card prices from where they were in 18, 19, 20, even 21, they've come way down. So, if you want to prospect on the fact that he's going to be an MVP candidate in the next couple of years, and that post-hype, kind of bubble pops, to me, that's an area, and that's the type of player that I like to look at. It is certainly not a perfect formula. You're going to take a chance on guys like a Nick Senzel, a Jonathan India, a Taylor Trammell, a Kyle Lewis, a Joe Adele. I mean, a lot of guys that had a lot of high rankings, and it's figuring out which ones you think have a chance to actually reach their original talent level. And I would even say, as a CJ Abrams, who's been a prospect for a while and now at the Nationals, was a top 10 pick, and even though he's only played a year or two, a lot of the hype, that he had originally and he had when he was going up the top 100 boards has come down with his prices. So that's one category for me. John, is that something that makes sense, in my mind?
I do it. You mentioned a guy I did it with, Luis Robert, right? When he got hurt, everybody jumped off the ship. It was like the ship was sinking. You thought he died by what people dumping their collections of Luis Robert. You think the guy died or had like a tore out both ACLs and his career was over. They couldn't. It was like hot potato. I bought some of that stuff when people were panic selling because I still believe in a Luis Robert. Another guy, great list that you gave. Another guy that came to mind as you were saying those names, Jared Kelenic, former Met.
Great name.
But man, did he struggle? He was striking out 40 to 45% of the time, batting 111. I haven't checked recently. He had a great start to this year. I have a lot of Jared Kelenic stuff. Now I will be 100% transparent. I was prospecting him because being a Mets fan and I knew about him early, maybe earlier than most because he was a Met. So I had a lot of stuff. Now, when he struggled, I didn't buy anymore. I had what I had. I didn't sell. I didn't panic, so I just kept. So, yeah, I wish he was still a Met, but sure, I'm hoping he performs well because I have, quite a bit of stuff. A great comment from Dan Ryan with Russell Wilson's terrible year under Nathaniel Hackett last year. And some of that is because of Nathaniel Hackett. Here in Syracuse, we're very familiar with Nathaniel Hackett, how he became an NFL coach. I'm not even going to go there.
You're very anti some coaches in the NFL. I'm just going to look at that.
He'll make my not great coaches list along with Matt Canada. So who I'm trying to dress like today with my Steelers visor and my black Under Armour shirt he's applying
for the job as offensive coordinator is what John's
because I can't do any worse. He ranked near the bottom of almost any offensive category. Not last year, but the last 2 years, I might add. All right, let's not make this a bag on Matt Canada. But yeah, it's a great example Dan brings, right? Russell Wilson is a talented quarterback. Now, I won't say it's all 100% Hackett's fault, but yeah, some of it is. So if you believe a lot of it is, right, it's a great time to buy Russell Wilson. His stuff has taken a precipitous drop. Believe me, I've sold some stuff recently at prices I was, it is what it is, right? That was shocking to me, but you gotta go with comps and what the market bears, and that's what it was. So someone might get a great buy that bought those graded Russell Wilson rookie cards from me, right? Next year he turns it back on and he looks like dangerous that we are familiar with the Seahawks and Pete Carroll. Then people got some great great buys on the downturn. So that's the fun, right? It's kind of guessing who's a good buy because of a situation like that?
Can I throw one at you? Is he a Hall of Fame prospecting?
I think if he can put it more years together, 3, 4, 5 more years of like all pro level quarterback, then yeah, I think he can get in the Hall. He now plays in the AFC, right? That's a very quarterback heavy conference now. You got Aaron Rodgers coming over. You already got Mahomes. That's in his division. Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. I hate to say it, right? So, will that hurt him or help him? I guess it depends. If he's going toe to toe with them guys, numbers wise, and making Pro Bowls, it's going to help him because he's making Pro Bowls in a tougher AFC over NFC, right? And so that will actually buffer his Hall of Fame resume. So I guess it's however you hedge your bets. But I think when he was in Seattle before last year, no one would argue he wasn't on a Hall of Fame track. Now, last year was pretty abysmal, believe me. In almost every fantasy football league I was in, he was cut. Imagine Russell Wilson on your fantasy football waiver wire. That's how bad his year was.
It's true.
That people picked up other quarterbacks off free agency. I know we're not talking hobby, and it's but that's where he was with his stat line last year.
It speaks to the value of his cards and whether or not you think he's going to be a Hall of Famer. There was a lot of people that I think were Hall of Fame prospecting on Kyler Murray a little too early. So Russ is far enough into his career that I think it's a fair question. Now, if you're talking about NFL Hall of Fame prospecting, I mean, realistically, there's not a lot of value outside of quarterbacks. So if you're looking at quarterbacks, and actually this is my number 2, which you've already spoken about, is the Hall of Fame prospecting. And we touched on baseball. But in the NFL, to me, it's a quarterback-driven, position, league value. So whether or not you like him, it's going to be Aaron Rodgers. Who else at this point is a Hall of Fame quarterback in the NFL? With Brady gone, with Breeze gone.
I think Patrick Mahomes. I know he's young and he's only played 5 years, 4 or 5 years.
His prices might already be up there. There may not be a value.
They are. But if you so here's my scouting report or my prospect report. I think he's got 3 more rings in him. So if you believe that, like I do, I think he's got 3 rings and a heck of a stat line when his career's over. That even at his prices now, if you bought the right cards, or you know what I mean, you can still, and you're patient, you don't mind waiting, and that's kind of what you want to do. You can do it. That's a great comment from Brendan.
Yeah, Brendan, what do you think about post-career hype prospects? Example, Peyton Manning, LeBron James, seeking Hollywood hype, betting on LaMelo Ball, doing the same thing in the distant future. Well, LaMelo Ball I would call a long-term prospecting, but as far as the idea in general, I think it's a great idea for Hall of Famers to separate themselves from other Hall of Famers. The value, as I've talked about on a lot of shows, value in cards and value in on the field are 2 different things.
I love Peyton Manning cards right now. Well, we've had this conversation, Danny, even off the air. I still buy, when I go to eBay or any kind of selling platform, one of the kind of my go-to searches is Peyton Manning RC. I look for Peyton Manning rookies because they're like, look at his numbers. He's got 2 rings. Look at his stat line. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks ever to play the game. He's got 2 rings. Like Dan Marino is one of the greatest quarterbacks ever to play the game, and unfortunately, he made the Super Bowl his rookie year, didn't win it, never got back again. No one will argue that Dan Marino's not a Hall of Fame quarterback or a great quarterback. Peyton Manning is that and more, and has 2 rings. And to me, his rookie cards are still undervalued to this day. And let's be real, he's having a Hall of Fame post-career with all the media stuff he's doing. He's hilarious. He's going to probably be on a sitcom at some point. That's how funny he is. All the commercials he does different segments for different networks. With him and his brother doing the Monday night commentating. He's a hard guy not to like. You could be a rival team, and he's a hard guy not to like it. I think he's still like when you look at his cards, they're still undervalued. And why? Someone asked me because I did a show about it, and someone, I got some feedback. And they're like, "Well, why is that? Why is he undervalued?" And it's one name, right? Tom Brady, right? He played in the shadow of Tom Brady in the same conference when Brady was with the Patriots. And let's be real, Peyton Manning would probably have more than 2 rings if it wasn't for Tom Brady. Other people would have rings.
You want to be real, his brother also did better in Super Bowls than him, which is a weird dynamic.
Yeah, but Peyton's a better quarterback overall.
But if you look at the value of their stuff, it should be nowhere close, and it is.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And to me, and I don't want to make this the Peyton Manning versus Tom Brady show, but I can make an argument Peyton Manning might be a better quarterback. He doesn't have the better resume. He might be the better quarterback. And some people would agree with that, And so Peyton Manning, kudos to Brendan for I don't know if he knew I was buying Peyton Manning stuff up, but I am. Another guy, you want to go back, we went back with Ted Simmons in baseball. Let's do that with a guy from football that's no longer with us, unfortunately. It's a guy I love. I'm a Steeler fan, but this is one of my favorite non-Steeler guys, and that's Walter Payton. Like, his rookie cards are still, you can get like a pretty high grade Walter Payton rookie for under 4 figures. And to me, that's crazy to me. And look at this, is a guy who missed 1 game his rookie year and played 13 seasons, never missed another game. NFL football, there's guys in basketball taking load management days off. There's guys in baseball slipping in the shower and missing 2 weeks and then doing rehab stints in Double-A.
First of all, there's nothing wrong with that.
Walter Payton's a running back, carrying the ball 20, 25 times a game, missed 1 game in his career with a fractured ankle his rookie year, and he wanted to play in that game. The doctors would not let him on the field. They literally had to hold him back and take his uniform from him.
Ronnie Lott cut off a finger. Walter Payton was a win.
Yeah. So you can go back even further for undervalued guys that you can now you could buy 20 Walter Payton rookies, right, and prospect that way. But the question then is, will they ever get the bump they deserve? He's already in the Hall. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, so he's not like he's doing TV and stuff where he's still sort of
not so much.
So that you got to take that into a factor with, if you're of the ilk where you're putting money into certain cards, you got to keep that in mind.
I do like this comment from Chris. Look at Bob Uecker cards. He was not a great baseball player and then became an actor on Mr. Belvedere, and his cards went up. Chris, I don't know how old you are, but more than Mr. Belvedere, he was Johnny Carson's regular and fill-in, and that's where he got his break from.
And don't forget this one, just a little bit outside.
Right, and eventually Major League. Yeah, 2 or 3 generations of Uecker stories. My favorite was that Rawlings hired him to a contract as long as he promised not to use their equipment. So. I could do that. Okay, so we've talked about a couple of the things that I wanted to go over, but I had one more on my list if I can break it out.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, the greatness breakout. And this would be Shohei Ohtani when he got hurt, because he had that greatness hype. And then he got hurt, but you had to predict a greatness breakout or he was never going to get back to those prices. Aaron Judge. Did you really think early last year that he could make the run the whole year? Did you believe in the greatness breakout? This season, somebody's going to do something great. We're going to talk later about home run hitters. Is somebody going to do what Judge did last year? Or is somebody going to set a new stolen base record, that nobody's stolen 100 bases in however many years? Anything, that I call that greatness breakout is a wonderful thing to look for, because that'll get a bump every single time.
Yeah, well, listen, let's talk about one of your guys, right? Cedric Mullins, 30 for 30, right?
Yep.
People started buying him a little bit. I didn't really buy him. It just seemed like everything I opened at that time, I was a Cedric Mullins magnet.
And he just homered. He just homered while you said that, by the way. So that's how.
Yeah. So, he's not a bad little ball player, But like, is hobby love and being a good ball player are two separate shows, right? And
Yep.
so, it's not just having a great year. Like, I'm in New York. Aaron Judge had an incredible year. We don't have to debate that. But if I'm looking long term, there's a reason I don't have a lot of Aaron Judge cards in my PC, and any Aaron Judge card I have, you'll see it at the show when I'm set up at it, because when you look at the history of bigger frame guys in Major League Baseball, what happens, right? They break down, just like I'm breaking down
Chris, you look
as
much
Chris
younger.
says
I'm
this,
sorry.
and he's a better looking guy than me. But you're right. But those bigger guys, can someone break the mold? Sure. And has it happened to everyone? No. But we've already seen some injuries with Aaron Judge in his younger years. When he signed when the Yankees gave him that big contract, I'm like, man, that's crazy to me. When they took the Giants off the hook and saved them, like that's that's a lot of money for a guy that might miss 20, if not more, games a year potentially, and on the back end of that contract, I don't know what you're getting anymore. Like, and listen, I'm not rooting against Aaron Judge. He's all accounts, he's a nice guy. I'm just stating sort of, that's kind of the track record for guys that frame.
Let me speak to kind of both comments here. Brendan says, I don't know how to predict anomalies yet. Excellent point. I guess let me give the reverse of what I was speaking to, is if you know a guy is going to hit 300 wins or some of the numbers that still matter, 500 home runs, there are greatness breakouts that you can spot a year or two or three in advance and take advantage of that. If a guy is in the prime of his career and is at 400 home runs, those cards are going to be a lot cheaper than they're going to be when that player gets to 500 home runs. So the greatness breakout can be seen a couple different ways, and sometimes it is just a statistical number, but that's all under one umbrella to me. Yes, no, I don't expect anybody to be able to predict things before the season, but sometimes when the season gets started, you can take a chance, on somebody who starts out hot. And that's a way to prospect. These are not ways to guarantee success. These are ways to prospect.
Yeah, I mean it's tough, right? You never know, and that's why it's prospecting. That's, to me, that's the definition of prospecting: is you are putting whatever it is, $1, $1,000. There's the different levels of it into some cards, hoping that there is. It pays off. You're hoping it's worth more. At some point, you're hoping it's worth more than you paid for. I think we do that even subconsciously. It doesn't even have to be, you buy a pack of cards for $5, right? You're hoping there's more than $5 worth of cards in the pack when you rip it open. I think we do that when we buy single cards too.
I hadn't thought about this, but one of the things that I really like are dual auto cards where you have a Hall of Fame kind of legend with a younger current player. And I think that always leaves room for growth, because if they're putting those players together, the chances are the active player, has a chance to become a Hall of Famer or grow into something more. So, I'm going to throw that in there, that I love when you see an active player with a Hall of Famer on a dual card, dual patch, dual auto, something, because I think that is, not only a really cool card, but a card that has a chance to have some sort of pop on it. And I wanted to read this comment also. I've been buying Antonio Gates and Steven Jackson on possible Hall of Fame prospecting over the last 2 years, and I love both players and would be happy to hold all cards for long term. Well, that's the key. Those are interesting names. I think Antonio Gates probably goes in first ballot, and that'll be interesting. I think tight ends are going to start getting hopefully a little bit more love with what Travis Kelce's been doing. And I think that'll help some other positions start getting some value.
I will say this: Antonio Gates probably has a better shot than Steven Jackson when you compare the two, and it's a good thing with Dan. And I don't want to speak for him. You're getting those two guys probably very cheap. Where, listen, if it doesn't work out, you're probably, depending, unless you're buying, heavy loads of them, you're not going to really lose too much. So it's a great way to hedge, and again, if they get in, of course their rookie cards are going to get an uptick, at least initially too. That would be, these are two guys where if they get in, I'm probably selling right away. Like this is going to be just one of those influx bounces, and then it kind of settles right down. So
you'd sell before the jacket was off.
Yeah, I would sell very quickly, because the demand, even if they're Hall of Famers, that demand's going to be highest that month, right? And then it's going to all quell down, and while they're still Hall of Famers, the demand for the card, everyone who wanted the cards has probably gotten the cards at that point. So it's like a hot potato, right? For that musical chairs, before the music stops, you want to be sitting down in one of those chairs and not having those cards anymore. And I'm not trying to be mean. They're both Hall of Fame type players. I don't know about Steven Jackson getting in. My gut tells me no. I think Antonio Gates was one of the best tight ends for many, many seasons. And believe me, as a guy who played fantasy football from the first year it was invented, he was a very high pick in a lot of drafts, and doesn't probably get enough love. Some with that tight end, right? But you made a great point. Guys like Travis Kelce, even George Kittle, and those guys are starting to bring more attention back to the position.
And the biggest thing Dan said that I love is that he would hold on to the cards no matter what. And that's the thing. You shouldn't load up on 100 cards of a player you don't like. That's just not a way. And yes, we are Yogi Berra fans here as well. So appreciate all the comments.
Yeah, real quick shout out. Got a great comment before the show from John Grokowski, who says he catches us on Spotify on Mondays, and so we appreciate that. And we appreciate everyone, whether you're watching us live right now or if you just don't want to see two ugly guys live. I don't blame you catching us on the audio podcast version too. Probably talking about smart plays. That one's kind of smart as well.
We're actually recommended to be audio only. We had to sign a waiver with YouTube. I wanted to read this comment real quick. Chris said, I sold my Brady's before his last Super Bowl. I saw them going down. I was wrong. I did not want to lose out on value. Well, Brady's a generational player. There's certain guys the rules just don't apply to, and you just got to accept that the Trouts, the Bradys, the Mantles of the world, and yes, I put them all in the same sentence. They're going to hold value and go up over time, kind of no matter what, and break the mold on most of this.
And we've all made, I don't want to say mistakes. I've
made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, we've sold too soon. We tried to sell, and it's too late, right? I could write a book on that stuff, Chris. So don't feel too bad. Mike's having fun with some great Yogi Berra isms and one-liners that he was so famous for. He was a character in his own right, and but he's another guy. Like, we're joking about Yogi, but when you look at his resume and how many rings he has, and he's a Hall of Fame catcher, his cards are well undervalued when compared to players of his era.
Well, and this goes to the comment we got earlier tonight about, athletes post-career when they get into, some sort of Hollywood or, The Last Dance, or they have a documentary. Yogi's, and I said it has to have big enough distribution. It's got to be watched by enough people, like The Last Dance was. Yogi's movie may have that. Being a Yankee, having his granddaughter Lindsay promoting it everywhere, being in movie theaters, and I think it'll be streaming. I think the Yogi hype is 100% accurate and deserve it, quite frankly.
You know what would be funny? It would be a play off something Yogi Berra would do if he was still with us. The movie, name it Yogi Berra Part 2. Even though,
Hey, boo-boo, that's the end of that one. Okay. Not sure if you already mentioned Albert Pujols. We mentioned him very early with Miguel Cabrera. I kind of put the two of them together. But he's definitely a guy where if you look at his value now compared to where it will be for his Hall of Fame bump, he's just undervalued. I think the end of his Anaheim years really hurt him.
Yeah, and he bounced around at the end. He went to the Dodgers, for a year, maybe 2 years. I think that sort of like people kind of perceived it as he's just kind of hanging on to get like the home run number that he, what was it, 700, I believe. So I think there was a sort of a negative connotation there. But even with that being said, he's a Hall of Famer. And that sometimes happens when guys maybe hang on too long. The public kind of views him in a negative light. But then when that Hall of Fame announcement's made, all that's forgotten and people are scrambling and clamoring for cards of that particular person.
Absolutely. Did you have anybody else on your list? Because I'm excited.
No, it was great, and people brought up some great names in the chat that weren't in my head that were should have been, right. And that's what's great about doing a live show is you can get help from everyone in the chat room. So Pujols is again underrated player, right. When we don't talk about what he did enough, whoever he played with the last few years, and then finishing. And I thought it was kind of cool going back to St. Louis and kind of where it all started, and putting the cherry on top of a Hall of Fame career.
Are his prices under Wander Franco?
Well, Wander's having a pretty good year so far.
But just comparing the careers and comparing the prices is crazy.
Yeah, well, listen. We if you want to open that Pandora's box, man, look at what some of these prospect colored autos go out of for new Bowman, right? They haven't even. Yeah. They're 3-4 years. They're 3-4 years, and I'm not talking about the Jackson Holidays. I'm talking about even other guys. They're 3-4 years away, right? And they're bringing four figures, and that's why I like buying vintage graded Hall of Fame rookie cards, because rather than buy a prospect that's 4 years away for $1,500, I'm gonna go buy a guy that's kind of cemented a Hall of Fame career, and the book is closed.
I think people want to hear you talk about that a little bit, but we could. How about we'll do a whole show on that?
Yeah, we could. Mattingly, right? I just you're gonna hear Heavy Jason Schwartz on an upcoming episode. And we do a really, an 8 to 10 minute segment on another guy that probably should be in the Hall for playing this game, Steve Garvey, 10-time All-Star Steve Garvey,
overrated.
Hall of Famer.
Overrated.
I don't know, man. You got to remember the era he played in. If you compare him to today's stats,
if he played on the Brewers instead of in that market, he wouldn't be in there. But I can't wait to listen to the other side.
Well, you'll hear, because we both made a case for Mr. Garvey.
Oh God, we're getting all the names: Keith Hernandez, Dick Allen. We got Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, Joey Votto. Yes, actually, this is the whole point of this conversation. These are all non-prospects that you can prospect. Or simply collect them if you enjoy them. That's the whole purpose of all this.
Yep.
So all right, let's move on and pay some bills.
Experience, quality, consistency, and the quickest turnaround times in the grading industry. We are proud to partner with SGC Grading. Check them out at www.gosgc.com.
And if we're playing that, it means that we're about to...
Welcome to the failure segment, where John and Danny share their picks sure to go wrong.
Here we go. Let's have a little fun. Who do we think is going to win the MLB home run title this year? These are the current odds as of FanDuel. Earlier today, we got Pete Alonso as the favorite, followed by Aaron Judge, Matt Olson, Max Muncy, Rafael Devers, Kyle Schwarber, Mike Trout, and Yordan Alvarez. So I was just wondering what everybody thought. It's been an early start for Alonso. There's been some other guys that are not on this list in the odds, Patrick Wisdom. But I know. Let's take two picks because this is a shot. But I know who I like.
All right, I'm gonna go one on the board and one not on the board.
Okay.
And I'm not, but here's the crazy thing. The one on the board is the first one, and I'm not picking him because he's on the Mets. I think he's going to get it. And that's Alonso. He just hits home runs. Sometimes he hits them when we're losing 5-0 and it's a solo shot. He's gonna lead in home runs. But I'm gonna go off the board with my second pick. Or do you want me to wait and you
No,
pick?
no. Go off the board. So I want to see if you're wrong first.
Randy Rosarina from Tampa.
Nice pick.
Kind of a dark horse. Not on this list here from DraftKings, but I think he's got 10 or 11. He's definitely, a power hitter, and I think he could hit 40 home runs and win the home run crown.
I just put up the list right now just to show us some of the leaders. Pete Alonso with 13, Muncy, Wisdom, Devers, Olson, Rosarina with 10, Renfro, Brent Rooker, and Rowdy Tellez are all your.
How about Brent Rooker? Who would have guessed Brent Rooker, possible home run champ?
I think that I don't know if he's possible home run champ, but he can certainly hit them. Mark Hoyle, you are correct.
Listen, I love Mark. Mark knows I love him, so he's Devers. Listen, he's a great player, but he's not really. He's more of a gap type, high average hitter, super productive, all star. Like I'd love to have him on the Mets. But he's not. I don't see him being like a 40 home run guy. I mean, he might have some years where he hits 40, but I don't. He's just an all around great player. I don't look at him as like Alonso is going to hit lots of home runs and bat 240, 250. Devers is a better player overall. That's my point with that, but not so much known as a home run guy in the true sense of the word.
I think in that ballpark, the type of hitter he is, it's just been a matter of time till he puts it all together. And I think in a year where he might be able to go for the fences a little bit more, carrying that lineup in a little bit of a down year, I think he's got a chance. So I'm going to take Devers as my first one, but I got to take Yordan Alvarez as my second choice. I mean, he to me, he's the second coming of Willie McCovey. Just unbelievable natural power to all fields. Here's a great comment. Otani, comeback kid, not. Yeah, I don't think he's going to win the home run title, but I do really like the power there. So those are my two. I think Yordan's also a good card, by the way. For some reason, I think he's still underrated, and so is Randy Rosarina. If you want my card take on that, Randy's been heating up. Randy's been hot since seems like since the World Baseball Classic.
Yeah, he just doesn't get like the probably the hobby love he should based on how he performed. I wonder if people just think he's older than he actually is, because it seems like he's been around longer than he actually has.
That's a great question. Do you have any idea how old he is?
No, I don't know if he knows how old he is.
This is live. He's 28 years old. So he's got easily 5.
He's not 28 years old until Joe Buck says he's 28 years old like 5 times.
Right.
It's like they're saying Beetlejuice 3 times. You're not your age until Joe Buck says, and he's Juan Soto. Did you know he's 21 years old? Until he does that to Randy Arozarena with 28, he's not 28.
I got news for you. If he's only 28, he's got a good 5 years of quality time. I just want to clean up a couple of comments here. Getting back to Steve Garvey, Mike Petty says, love Garvey, grew up watching him at Dodger Stadium. He was a written-in vote for the 74 All-Star Game, then won the MVP in it. Yes, that is true. He was a write-in vote. I think because he was not supposed to, correct me if I'm wrong, he was not supposed to make the team that year, and he made it late in spring training or the beginning of the year, but please correct me on that. Beetlejuice 2 in the making with John Newman. Absolutely.
It's showtime. Anytime I can do my Beetlejuice, it's showtime.
Mookie says, careful those guys who did a World Baseball Classic effectively, played about a quarter season before opening day. Randy Peters out. Maybe.
That's a great point, though. That's a great point that they've got, probably the equivalent of maybe, 20 major league games sort of And
it was in lieu of spring training, so to me, I don't think it's a huge.
Yeah, that's true too. That's true too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was more exciting, but I don't think they got a ton more at bats except for a couple guys. All right, John. What else? Anything else before
we got a one more sponsor. We got to.
Let me make up for your slip up here. I can't believe you did this.
Pastime Marketplace has a line of graded card cases that are waterproof, airtight, dust-tight, and hardened to protect and organize your valuable collection. Each of our cases come with pre-cut and pre-formed foam, so you don't have to cut and tear the foam when you get your case. The pre-cut foam inserts are sized to hold PSA, Beckett, SGC, and CGS slabs. Store it all safely and securely with a case from Pastime Marketplace. Check them out at www.pastimemarketplace.com.
Our excuse to get a quick soda in and talk about how great Pastime cases are. So thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, I got to say real quick, I use them when I go to my shows. So that's what carries my cards. I'm not just saying that. That was I actually used the cases before they were a sponsor. So that's the biggest endorsement you can get. I promise I won't screw up again and not play the intro next week. I will write it 100 times on the whiteboard behind me. I will not forget to play the intro. But we'll let you do it next week, Danny. That'll be my punishment.
Well, I think that makes you the official Bart Simpson of the two of us then. Right?
No.
Well, actually, you have the donuts. That makes you Homer Simpson,
Yeah, I have a lot of donuts. And my wife and my son both brought them home from their jobs. Like, I'm trying to eat better, and then they bring, 18 donuts home. So, so much for that theory.
Well, on that one, I will play the outro. This was we hit the lucky dozen. Is that where we are?
Yeah, and everyone, we've gotten great feedback too. I know a lot of people probably, like I said, smartly don't have to see the ugly mugs and downloading the show. So for those folks, we thank you as well. That's more than fine. And for those enough to brave the chat room and looking at us on screen, an extra point of credit for you folks. We appreciate you each and every other week, and thanks for being here.
Thanks, guys, and have a good one.